they're very good once you get it, you're in type thing. And I think to some extent, like maybe the last one's a little true, but like I think it's a lot harder to break into it now. It's
Yeah.
a lot more challenging because these companies don't need as many people either. You're seeing like layoffs, reductions and stuff like that. So if you're like getting into this because that's what you want, I would say reassess the industry, look at things carefully because it's not the same as back then. I think a lot of people get stuck in that mindset, where like they think about this thing, it's like way back in the day, but it's changed so much that the jobs are not like that and they're not there anymore. So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind.
Yeah. That's kind of similar to like what I was what I was going to say, which I think this is one of the biggest ones that I've seen over the past, I don't know, 2 years that we've been doing Code Noobs is people getting into this for the wrong reasons and particularly money related, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I see more frequently than anything else is that people want to become developers because there's this idea of being a developer means you're going to get paid a lot. And it's very appealing. I understand that. But the reason why people get paid a lot to be a developer is not because they're just a developer, it's because they put hours and hours and hours into this craft. It's not something where it's just like, oh, you learn HTML and you're going to get paid a lot of money. In fact, there's a lot of
Yeah.
developers who make almost no money or don't ever get a job because they have this mindset of, I just need to know enough to build a basic, hello world website, and then some giant company is going to come hire me. That's not the case a long time ago, and it's still not now, and it's particularly not even more now. So that said, I think, you know, if you're considering something as, hey, I want to make a lot of money or I'm in need of a lot of money, usually that desperation is going to like sort of like harm you in general. But before you just jump into coding, think about like what you're actually good at, because we've had people come into our group who want to become developers and they can barely use a computer. And the reality is, if you can barely use a computer, you
Not
should
gonna happen.
not be a developer. It's not going to go well for you. It's not. It is not. You can struggle for it for years, but it's really not going to happen. So I think if you're like considering this from the just pure money aspect of like, I need to make money instead of I love coding, I love everything about computers, you need to sit down and be like, what am I actually good at? Where do my talents lie? Because you can make a lot of money doing pretty much anything at this point. Like, I mean, just look at OnlyFans, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
like,
No, I think that's a really good one though too. I think people get into a lot of things for the wrong reasons, or thinking that
yeah,
they have this like image in their head that's gonna do something that's just not, or that's not how reality is. So I think it's a really good one because it's like a reality check, right? And I wanted to just say too, because Anthony made a couple of points that are good, which is he just it's like he was talking about using Bolt for the hackathon as well,
hmm
and how it's different. It is very different from Cursor. I think they're talking.
yeah,
It's a different type of thing too. It's not the same. Um, but I think too, it's also true that like, if you're getting into this, you do, like you said, you need to love just computers and building. And because that's also where you're
yeah,
going to come up with the best ideas. The people that love
yeah,
this stuff and just like connecting things, that's where it's going to happen. But he also said too, if you don't know like back end and fundamentals like that, you're going to have a problem debugging this stuff too, which is true.
yes,
You need
yeah,
to understand like
a
how do
larger
APIs
picture of,
connect?
yeah,
Yeah, why am I using this versus that? Which, because even choosing a tech stack, if you don't specify, this stuff's going to go wild just picking things.
yeah,
And it might not be the best choice, or it might not be the best choice for you because you might not understand it, like,
yeah. I would say this
I like
too.
what you said.
Go ahead.
I like what you said there about having to really love it, because it is something where you really do have to enjoy sitting in front of a computer. Like, I
Yeah,
look at myself versus some of the other people who are very good at hacking, and the one main difference is they sit in front of a computer all freaking day and they love it.
yeah,
Like, I sit in front of a computer and I think about going outside and doing something outside
yeah,
or doing something active. So like I can see the difference there because they just spend all day like poking at code until they find the holes. Whereas for me, I do it for a few hours and then I just need to be done with it for the day.
yeah,
And so it really is important to find something that you love in that area, because for coding, you're going to need to be spending a lot of time in front of a computer. So if you're like dreaming of, working out in some national park or something, coding is not for you.
Yeah, it's not. And you have to put so many hours into like just being in front of a computer that if
And
you're
failing,
yeah,
being in front of you're failing at first too.
yeah,
That's the
that
other
if you're
thing.
just
Like,
like distracted with that of like, hey, I want to whatever it is, like I want to work on cars or I want to like think about what you would do if nobody was paying you to do it, right? And that's probably where you should head with it. I
that
wanted
gets to like the larger issue too, though. Just like I think people are all so stressed about money and stuff and trying to
yeah,
like predict the market and stuff and like what's going to be good, whatever. And that approach never works
no, it doesn't.
because you end up doing something you don't like or you're making choices for the wrong reasons. And it really gets down to just, knowing what you want to is also
Yeah.
the hard
A lot
part.
of times you're making those choices off of old data too, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's the issue,
like
right? Like thinking of 2000 when it was like the boom and these jobs
yeah,
were you got out with like you got a boot camp degree and you were making six figures immediately because it was like they just
yeah.
were hiring people.
Yeah. I have like one other thing that I think is a good recommendation in terms of getting into development now is if you want to become a developer now and you want to build apps using AI, which is what I recommend. I really don't recommend you try to like
No.
code on your
Uh,
own. You're just by the time you build an app, AI is going to change so much that it can code like
Oh,
basically what you
You know
built.
what I would say is if you don't know code and you really want to get into it and you love it, like and you're going to use AI
Yeah.
and whatever language you're working in, get like a book about it and read
Yeah.
it while you're doing it because that'll give you a good overview of stuff. It'll help you understand at least what you're looking
Yeah.
at,
And
and
I
then
think
you
that's
can
important. Like we're not trying to say don't understand code.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like you are going to have to understand it, but it's actually we're now gotten to the point where it's almost more important to be able to read code than it is to be able to write code, right?
Well, and that's the
Or
funny thing, right?
Understanding
understand.
I
code is
can
for losers.
Yeah.
well, that's the funny
What
thing.
a
I can read.
loser. You can read code? Oh my
And
God.
like
That's the crazy
understanding
part, though. You can
design
read
patterns and architecture is
Yeah.
super important.
I was gonna say that you can read like I can read code in languages that I don't usually use and
Yeah.
understand the logic and the flow, even though I couldn't write it. And I think we're
Yeah.
at this point now where that doesn't matter because as long as
Yeah.
you understand what's happening, you can work with it.
Yeah. So the last thing that I was going to say is I think it's really important at this point to not only be able to code, but also have some domain specific knowledge because that's going to help you if you want to build your own apps or stand out as a developer. Like there's an excess of developers at this point, right? And because AI is so good, most of those developers are not as good as AI in general, right? So really the most in demand like traditional developer at this point is an AI engineer, like somebody who's creating the large language models, right? With which are like really like mathematicians at this point, right?
No, not anymore. It was originally, but now it's still that's even gotten
Yeah,
easier in a sense.
right?
But
Cuz
but still understanding all that, it's the data and stuff and working through
yeah.
all that. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is you give yourself a huge advantage if you have some domain specific knowledge that you can bring into this and like lean into as well. So if you did something before becoming a developer and you do love computers, I would say your best option is to head in that direction in terms of development because you bring something else to the table that most developers don't. I mean, you can hire developers in India for like $1 an hour or probably or something super cheap to do basic stuff, right? But they don't have domain specific knowledge where they can think through problems in a different way and see things in a different way. So I think that's one of the best advantages that you can have as a developer at this point is to have some other knowledge of something besides just coding. You
Yeah, I
guys agree
actually
with
got
that?
I got reached out to by a Indian development firm or whatever
Of
on
course,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
I guess, and and they were they were saying like they're senior developers. Yeah, like the point, right? Ed tech is his path. That is true, and that is where you
Right.
shine because you have that knowledge. But they were saying like they're senior developers. I think it was like $12 an hour, US,
Yeah.
which is like,
For a
grant who
senior
knew?
developer. And the thing
Yeah,
is, you're like, that's awesome, but I can just have Cursor do
Cursor do
that for
it.
if I understand like the big moving parts of what I'm building, I can
Yeah.
really I literally you can just prompt like act as a senior developer, okay, there you go. You got a senior developer.
Well,
Like,
the thing is,
it's
but
like,
I think you're right though,
Act as a
because
senior developer making $12 an hour.
yeah.
yeah, if you understand that, if you understand what needs to happen, because it's also, if you do understand like the file structure and stuff in Next and stuff, it's a lot better
Mhm.
because you can also tell it exactly what you want, and
Yeah.
you're going to get better results. And understanding that
Yeah.
helps, but that's also just, you can learn that by doing too,
Yeah.
and by just being, reading stuff and looking at it and seeing what's happening.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of
That's good.
three and one, I guess. But the
Yeah.
reality is, at this point, AI is taking over development, and you really have to love this if you want to have success in it. And then I think on top of that, you have to start looking at the bigger picture of like, you're no longer going to be successful just as a developer. You may be for the next couple years, but as AI just continues to take over, you need to start thinking about development more from a standpoint of marketing, sales, everything like CI/CD, every aspect that you can sort of pack into this box of development, I think is going to come in handy at this point. And just understanding, the core HTML tags are, it's not going to get you too far anymore.
No.
So
Not even worth learning anymore.
pretty much not. Yeah. I mean, you can, again, just use AI to teach you that in a short period of time. And I think
Dude,
that's,
HTML, CSS, and this stuff, it rocks at like, and
yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's no reason to bother with it because it can do it so much faster too. Like, it's
Oh
incredible.
God, it's
Half the time,
insane.
we know what's funny. It's like half the time, right? Like, there's all these like UI libraries out there. I don't even bother with them a lot of times because it just
It'll
builds
just,
the thing
yeah,
exactly what I want.
yeah,
And,
it's pretty wild.
yeah,
Like I think that's, there's a lot of, it's interesting. I had this thought the other day, right? Where like at some time in the future, we're going to get to a point where we divert so much knowledge to AI that,
people aren't gonna know anything.
yeah. I was watching this,
Have them with cell phones.
yeah, I was watching this YouTube video about a guy I forget, like his name was like Sergi something, but he was talking about sort of how AI has like revolutionized, development and like app building, things like that, and how AI is sort of like a new energy source, right? But it's like a knowledge source. So he was talking about how there's open source AI, sort of like Llama, and then there's like closed source, like, these large language
Open
models, like,
AI.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
not. Like you have ChatGPT and like whatever. And so he was saying it's really interesting because now we're gonna have these like knowledge brownouts where like, all these models go down. Like we saw recently where like Google Cloud went down and all of a sudden all of the large language models went down with it. And so there's like these knowledge brownouts where we divert so much knowledge to AI that at some point in the future, it's possible that we have just like put all human knowledge into AI. And then what happens if something happens where all those large
They'd like to fire the Library of Alexandria.